I've never found anyone who said no or hung up the phone when I called. I just asked. And when people ask me, I try to be as responsive, to pay that debt of gratitude back. Most people never pick up the phone and call. Most people never ask. And that's what separates sometimes the people that do things from the people that just dream about them. You gotta act. And you've got to be willing to fail. You've got to be willing to crash and burn, with people on the phone, with starting a company, with whatever. If you're afraid of failing, you won't get very far.
He's the founder of Apple Computers and Pixar Studios. He's responsible for bringing products to you such as the iPod, iPhone, and iPad. He's worth $8 billion, and of course we're talking about Steve Jobs, and he is one of the most successful businessmen of all time. Today we're going to talk about his 7 habits of success in this video. If something sticks out to you, remember to list it below in the comment section below in quotes and share it with other readers. Again, if you write it down, you're more than likely to remember it.
It comes down to trying to expose yourself to the best things that humans have done, and then try to bring those things in to what you're doing. I mean, Picasso had a saying. He said, good artists copy, great artists steal. And we have, always been shameless about stealing great ideas. And I think part of what made the Macintosh great was that the people working on it were musicians and poets and artists and zoologists and historians who also happen to be the best computer scientists in the world.
And today, we're going to show you a software breakthrough. Software that's at least 5 years ahead of what's on any other phone. Now, how do we do this? Well, we start with a strong foundation. iPhone runs OS X. Now, why would we want to run such a sophisticated operating system on a mobile device? Well, because it's got everything we need. It's got multitasking. It's got the best networking. It already knows how to power manage. We've been doing this on mobile computers for years. It's got awesome security. And to write apps, it's got everything from Cocoa and the graphics, and it's got core animation built in, and it's got the audio and video that OS X is famous for. It's got all the stuff we want, and it's built right in to iPhone. And that has let us create desktop-class applications and networking, right? Not the crippled stuff that you find on most phones. This is real desktop-class applications. Now, one of the pioneers of our industry, Alan Kay, has had a lot of great quotes throughout the years. And I ran across one of them recently that explains how we look at this, explains why we go about doing things the way we do, because we love software. And here's the quote. People who are really serious about software should make their own hardware. Alan said this 30 years ago, and this is how we feel about it. And so we're bringing breakthrough software to a mobile device for the first time. It's 5 years ahead of anything on any other phone.
So we started with the product line. We looked at the product roadmap going out for a few years, and we said a lot of this doesn't make sense, and it's way too much stuff, and there's not enough focus. And so we actually got rid of 70% of the stuff on the product roadmap. I mean, I couldn't even figure out the damn product line after a few weeks. I kept saying, well, what is this model? How does this fit? And I started talking to customers, and they couldn't figure it out either. And so you're going to see the product line get much simpler, and you're going to see the product line get much better. And there's some new stuff coming out that's incredibly nice. In addition, we've been able to focus a lot more on the 30% of the gems and add some new stuff in that is going to take us in some whole new directions. So we are incredibly excited about the products. And I think we're really thinking differently about the kinds of products we have to build. And the engineering team is incredibly excited. I mean, I came out of the meeting with people that had just gotten their projects canceled, and they were they were 3 feet off the ground with excitement because they finally understood where in the heck we were going, and they were really excited about the strategy.
Is innovating in stagnant industries. You've got to be able to innovate in stagnant industries if you want to be able to do the type of produce the type of results that Steve Jobs produced. He would go into an industry such as the music industry. The industry at that time that he developed the iPod, was CDs. It was only CDs that were out. You actually had to drive to a store to buy a CD for your compact disc player, and then, you know, go back home and listen on your CD player. Well, Steve Jobs had the idea of putting 100 songs in people's pockets, and that concept enabled him to really scale millions of dollars. Again, just innovating in spaces that have not had that much innovation. And this has been done by a lot of people recently. Even Apple went into the watch industry recently. Not a lot of people you know, were really that crazy about watches as they are today. And you know, you had people who, sure, they bought Rolexes or Timex or you know, whatever brands, but now they have brought technology into watches like no one has ever done before. Someone who recently also did use this same strategy that Steve Jobs used was, of course, Dr. Dre and Jimmy Iovine when they produced Beats by Dre headphones. The headphone industry had largely stayed the same, flat, not a lot of innovation, not a lot of excitement until Beats by Dre was introduced. Now, the key thing is, and what Dr. Dre and Jimmy Iovine did, and they admitted this in a conference, you can find this online, was they asked themselves, if Apple came out with headphones, what would they look like? And they came out with a product that was very, very, very much along the stylistic lines of what Apple put into their products. White headphones. They also had a lot of different candy colors, just like Apple did with its iPods, the neon pink, green, blues, the black headphones. They modeled them on many, many, many different levels. But a lot of people are doing this. Ask yourself, if Apple made blank, what would it look like? Tesla, I think, has done this a lot when you look at Tesla Motors. If Apple made a car, what would it look like? And they put in auto drive, self-driving capabilities, electric car, very clean. There's a large iPad basically in the center console of all Tesla automobiles. So that's what they basically took, is that model of what would Apple, if Apple made this product, what would it look like? Whether it's a picture frame, a ceiling fan, you know, if you start asking this question on the products that you're making, the sky is the limit.
If you believe that these are the most incredible tools we've ever built, which I do, then the more powerful tool we can give to people, the more they can do with it. And in this case, we found a way to do 2 or 3 things that were real breakthroughs. Number one was to put a much more powerful computer in front of people for about the same price as a PC. The second was to integrate that networking into the computer so we can begin to make this next revolution with interpersonal computing. And the PCs so far have not been able to do that very well. And the third thing, and maybe the most important, was to create a whole new software architecture from the ground up that lets us build these new types of applications and lets us build them in 25% of the time that it normally takes to do on a PC. So we spent 4 years with 50 to 100 of the best software people that I know, creating a whole new software platform from the ground up. And the way our industry works is that you create this platform software first, and then you go out and you get people to write new applications on top of it. Well, the height that these new applications can soar is is enabled or limited by the platform software. And there's only been 3 systems that have ever been successful in the whole history of desktop computing. That was the Apple II's platform software, of which there wasn't too much, the IBM PC, and Macintosh. So we're attempting to create the 4th platform software standard, and hopefully we'll succeed.
So we were able to change the rules of those games in the game in the same way in the tablet.
Yeah, talk about
what
the
I
tablet.
remember telling you on the tablet was that handwriting was probably the slowest input method ever invented, and that it was doomed to failure. Well, what we tried to do was reimagine the tablet. In other words, I think Microsoft did a lot of interesting work on the tablet. What we've done is not compete with what they did. We reimagined it, and what we're doing is completely different than what they did. You know, they're completely stylus-based.
Their tablet PC that they have now.
For 10 years.
Yeah, right.
You know, and what we said at the very beginning was, if you need a stylus, you've already failed.
So let's talk about tablets.
And that drove everything. That drove everything. Their tablet PC was based on a PC.
Right.
Had all the expense of a PC, had the battery life of a PC, had the weight of a PC. It used a PC operating system that really needed the precision of the tip of an arrow of a cursor.
Right.
Well, the minute you throw a stylus out, you cannot get that precision. You have the precision of a finger, which is much cruder. Therefore, you need to have totally different software. So you can't use a PC operating system. And you have to bite the bullet and say, we're going to have to create this from scratch because all the PC apps won't work without being rewritten anyway. And so we built a very different animal.
The penalty for failure for going and trying to start a company in this valley is non-existent. There really isn't a penalty for failure either psychologically or economically, in the sense that if you have a good idea and you go out to start your own company, even if you fail, you're generally considered worth more to the company you left because you've gained all this valuable experience in many disciplines.
No, I've actually always found something to be very true, which is most people don't get those experiences because they never ask. I've never found anybody that didn't want to help me if I asked them for help. I always call them up. I called up, this will date me, but I called up Bill Hewlett when I was 12 years old, and he lived in Palo Alto. His number was still in the phone book. And he answered the phone himself. He said, yes? He said, hi, I'm Steve Jobs. I'm 12 years old. I'm a student in high school, and I want to build a frequency counter. And I was wondering if you had any spare parts I could have. And he laughed, and he gave me the spare parts to build this frequency counter, and he gave me a job that summer in Hewlett-Packard, working on the assembly line, putting nuts and bolts together on frequency counters. He got me a job in the place that built them. And I was in heaven. And I've never found anyone who said no or hung up the phone when I called. I just asked. And when people ask me, I try to be as responsive, to pay that debt of gratitude back. Most people never pick up the phone and call. Most people never ask. And that's what separates sometimes the people that do things from the people that just dream about them. You gotta act. And you've got to be willing to fail. You've got to be willing to crash and burn, with people on the phone, with starting a company, with whatever. If you're afraid of failing, you won't get very far.
More importantly, music's a part of everyone's life. Everyone. Music's been around forever. It will always be around. This is not a speculative market. And because it's a part of everyone's life, it's a very large target market all around the world. It knows no boundaries. But interestingly enough, in this whole new digital music revolution, there is no market leader. There are small companies like Creative and Sonic Blue, and then there's some large companies like Sony that haven't had a hit yet. They haven't found the recipe. No one has really found the recipe yet for digital music. And we think not only can we find the recipe, but we think the Apple brand is going to be fantastic because people trust the Apple brand to get their great digital electronics from. So let's look at portable music. Let's look at the landscape. The first thing, if you want to listen to music portably, you can go out and buy a CD player, right? That's one way to go, about 10 to 15 songs. Or you can buy a flash player. Go out and buy one of those. You can buy a MP3 CD player, or you can buy a hard disk-based jukebox player. These are the 4 choices for portable music right now. So let's take a look at each one of those. A CD player costs about $75, holds 10 to 15 songs on a CD. That's about $5 a song. You go buy a flash player, pay about double that, about $150, holds the same 10 to 15 songs, or about $10 a song. You can go buy an MP3 CD player, and an MP3 CD, which you can burn on your computer, costs about $150, but holds 150 songs. So you get down to $1 a song. Or you can go buy a hard drive jukebox player for about $300. It holds about 1,000 songs and costs about 30 cents a song. So we looked at this and studied all these, and that's where we want to be. That is where we want to be. And we are introducing a product today that